Okay, good morning. We're going to start today by looking at the mixed exercise, which is on page 15 of the online textbook. Now, my view is slightly different to yours, but hopefully you can navigate to this page. And I just want to talk about a few of the questions in this exercise. I'm hoping that question 1 doesn't cause you much of a problem. Don't forget solution bank for the answers, so that's why I'm not going to go through these in great detail. Certainly expanding brackets is something we should be capable of doing. Factorising, we haven't done any factorising, but it's in the induction book. We've done lots of it at GCSE. I am going to do a factorising question from here, question 18, shortly, which may help you with some of the harder ones here. But basically, question 5, you've got some single bracket ones, and question 6, you've got some double bracket ones. Question 7 is some interesting ones. We then get into some of the simplify questions, some of the indices questions, some of the surds questions. Again, I'm sort of hoping that you would be able to do that. So in a minute, I want to talk about question 11, which I think is quite a tricky question. I'm hoping that you'll be okay with the surd questions. Question 14 is definitely one I'd like you to try, and I'm not going to go through question 14, but in a minute I'm going to go through a question which is a bit like question 14. I'm also going to go through question 15 in a minute. I'm hoping you could have a go at the surd questions. I'm going to go through question 18 in a minute, and that's as far as I intend to go. The other questions are tricky. You mustn't be scared by the mixed exercise. The intention with the mixed exercise is to sort of push things a little bit further. And some of you, those of you who felt really confident as we've gone through this chapter 1, may well want to have a look at those questions. And as I said, you've got the solution bank. Now, I'm not setting you this as homework, but I'm suggesting that it would be worth working through some of these questions, probably not all of these questions, because there's a lot there. And that's going to be my suggestion for this week. So this is Monday's video. Friday's a bank holiday, so I wasn't going to do a video for Friday, but I think there's probably enough here to keep you ticking over for this whole week, and I'm going to leave you to decide what you do. Okay, so a few selected questions. Firstly, question 11. Now, actually, substituting x is 25 into that expression is something you can do, but there's a really neat trick on the calculator, which I think I've shown you before, but I'll show you again anyway. So if I type 25 and I use the arrow key, which is here underneath tan, and then hit the X button that we use quite a lot, that stores 25 as the value of x in the calculator. And now, if I just type in this expression, 35x squared plus 2x minus 48, and press XE, it calculates it for me, making x equal to 25. So there we go, that's my answer to that one. Now, the second question asks us to factorise this expression, and of course factorising quadratics when you've got more than one x squared is tricky, and when you've got 35x squared, well, that's super tricky. Although you can probably guess that you're either going to have 35x and 1x, or 5x and 7x, because that's the only way you're going to make 35x squared. Now, we're not being asked to solve it, are we? But can I show you a bit of a trick that we can use to help us factorise things? It doesn't always work, it's not foolproof. But let's pretend that instead of being asked to factorise it, I'm being asked to solve it, and that I've decided to solve it using factorising. So, I've got my expression, I'm going to try and write two brackets, and from that I'm going to try and get my two solutions, the two values of x that make each bracket 0. But I'm stuck. So I'm going to turn to my calculator because I know that I can solve quadratic equations on my calculator. I'm just going to focus. So I go to equation mode on the menu. So I'll just do that again. Menu and equation. Quadratic equation is an example of a polynomial, so that's f2. And the degree, the highest power of x, is 2, it's x squared. And look, I've already typed in this quadratic, so I've got 35x squared plus 2x minus 48. So I just do that by doing 35xe, 2xe minus 48xe. And then if I press xe again, it gives me my two solutions. Now up here it gives them to me as decimals. That's not particularly helpful. But look, if I highlight the first one, it says that one of the solutions is 8 over 7. And the other solution is minus 6 over 5. Now, I'm not going to say any more at that point, but it might be that you can think about those two solutions and think, what would I see in the bracket here and here to give me those solutions? Remembering that I said that to get 35x squared, you've either got 35 and 1 or 7 and 5. So I'm just going to leave that one for you at that point. Have a think about that. The next one I'd like to help you with is question 14 from the mixed exercise, but I'm not going to do question 14. I'm going to do a question from, this isn't from the mixed exercise, it's from an earlier exercise. And it's a similar approach, so I'm hoping that having shown you the answer to this, you'll be able to do question 14. So on the left-hand side here, I've got three expressions multiplied together, so I'm going to expand that. So I start by expanding the first two, there we go. And my answer for that goes up here, and then I multiply it by the third bracket. So hopefully that's a process that you're familiar with. And I like these because they're stripy, aren't they? So I get 12x squareds, I get 32x squared y, 3xy squared, and minus 5y cubed. Multiplying this out looks fiddly, but actually it's really easy. Numbers and letters separately. Minus 5 times 2 is minus 10. X times y squared, it really is as easy as xy squared. And all of those are similar to that. So I've multiplied out, I've expanded the left-hand side, and we're being told that it equals that. So I can straight away see, because this sign here tells me what's on the left has to equal what's on the right, A must be 12, B must be 32, C must be 3, and D must be minus 5. Now that's a sort of common sense process. It's actually a process that has a name. We call that equating. It comes from the name of this, the equal sign. And we're basically saying that if you have an expression on one side and an expression on the other side, then the number of each term has to be the same on both sides. So the number of x cubed, on this side has to be the same as number of x cubed on this side, etc., etc., etc. Now, that's an easier version of what happens in question 14, but I think it's worth you having a go at question 14 and seeing if you can get somewhere with it. I'm going to do question 15. If you want to have a go at it first yourself, then pause the video and have a go at it first yourself, and then come and have a look at my work solution. And don't forget you've got the solution bank, so it's all good. So we're told that this is y, and we're asked to work out y to the power of 1/3 and 4 lots of y to the minus 1. So let's do y to the 1/3 first. So that means they want us to do this thing to the power of a third. That's the cube root, and hopefully you remember by now that because these two are being multiplied, I can just cube root these two things separately. Now, cube rooting x cubed is easy. It's x to the power of 1. The other way of thinking about it is to multiply. So I know I've got x to the power of 1. The cube root of 1 over 64. What do we multiply by itself and by itself again to get 1 over 64? That's a quarter. Okay. The second one, I've got to do 4y to the minus 1. Now there's two things happening here, aren't we? We're multiplying by 4 and we're doing y to the power of minus 1. And if you remember from your big maths, the indices comes before the multiplying. So the first thing I need to do is to do the y to the minus 1, and then I need to get that answer and multiply it by 4. Now, I'm going to take y and I'm going to rewrite it. I'm not going to do y to the minus 1 yet, I'm just going to rewrite that. The other way of writing that is like this. And it's quite an important thing at A level that you're relaxed about the fact that this and this mean the same thing. It's 1 over 64 times x cubed over 1. Think of it as a fraction multiplication sum. So that's what you end up with that. Now the reason I've chosen to write y like that, it's exactly the same as that. It's just two different ways of writing the same thing. Well, hopefully you can see, because I want to know what y to the minus 1 is. And we know that means 1 over, but if it's a fraction, it just means you flip it. And 4 lots of y to the minus 1 is 4 times that. And if you think of 4 as being 4 over 1, do it as a fraction multiplication sum, you end up with and that's the answer. Last one I want to go through is question 18. And I think if having done that, you might find question 7 is a little bit easier as well. So factorise completely, the use of the word completely, sometimes they use the word fully, implies something's up here, it's perhaps not straightforward. I mean, I note that both of these things have got an x in them. So that's a good start, isn't it? Let's pull the x out. But there must be something else, because we're told to factorise completely. Well, this is a quadratic. And before I try and factorise that, can I remind you about factorising things like this? Do you remember we call these difference of two squares? So you get x plus 3, x minus 3. So whenever you've got something squared, take away something else squared, you can factorise it like that. That's what we've got here. This is 1 squared, isn't it? And this is 8x times 8x. So that goes to that. So this bracket here is a difference of two squares, factorisation. Now if you don't believe me, put it out and try it. Do 1 plus 8x, 1 minus 8x, and you'll see that I am correct. Okay, so as I said, I'm not setting you, question 1 to 5 as homework or anything like that, and I'm certainly not expecting you to sit down and do all 24 questions in the mixed exercise. But I recommend that you spend Monday and Friday, or whatever you're spending doing your maths at home, looking at that particular exercise. Use the solution bank to help you, but by all means, email me if you want some help. I think on Friday I will post a little video with a couple of solutions to the harder questions, but I trust your week goes well. Okay.